Thank you very much. And
I'm also equally glad to be a part of your this podcast channel. I have also seen your lot of videos in past, and it is quite inspiring, especially for the professionals who want to make their career in supply chain. These videos become very relevant because theories and practical world operate differently. So the difference makes this videos more relevant, I would say.
yes,
Thank you for running such a show, Marinder.
no, thank you.
This is a
Thanks a
good
lot.
work and mm, helping a
Okay.
lot of supply chain professionals.
So I hope whoever is watching it, he or she or they are getting benefit out of it. And today's video is very important. So, but before we proceed, I think it's if you can introduce yourself about your background and currently what you are doing, and then we will take it forward.
Yeah, so my name is Tanmay, and I am currently heading supply chain function in BPL Medical Technologies. I joined this organization in 2019 June as a head of supply chain, doing the same same role for the last 5 years. But the nature of role has evolved significantly as we are growing. The business is growing. Uh, the requirements, competitive strategies are changing.
Yeah,
We are expanding in our supply chain both in terms of capacity as well as capability. So it's been a great, exciting journey for me.
yeah. So so let's speak from the current industry experience where currently you are heading supply chain. A part of it, I know that you are leading the procurement part as well under supply chain. So electronics or components around this space is something you handle and your team handles. So um, this space is very critical from supply chain point of view. Like lots of things are being imported, and the moment anything is imported, we are exposed to risk. So, if can you brief something about what kind of components your team are managing currently, primarily in the procurement side, and then maybe later we will touch base the supply chain as well. If you can brief about
Yeah,
it.
sure, sure. So, Maninder, first of all, I would like to give a glimpse of this medical device industry in India. It is approximately 20 to a $12 billion industry market in India, and expected to grow at the CAGR of around 12.5%,
Okay.
uh, and expected to reach $40 billion market in the next 10 years.
Hmm.
So this is a sunshine sector expected to grow at a very fast rate, and it is sunshine sector in India primarily because we are heavily dependent on imports, and there is a significant room for India to spread its supply chain, make it more robust and capable. So when I say this, I would definitely it is very obvious that significant portion of the components that we used in manufacturing comes from outside India, and it is across all the geographies, all the continents and countries of the world. We as a company source 70 to 80% of the components from outside India, primarily the electronics chips, both active and passives, and primarily this is done because of course limited capability of Indian manufacturing ecosystem.
Hmm.
Now, apart from this electronics, a lot of components, other components which are equally critical goes in manufacturing of medical devices, which can be as good as small as metal parts, plastic parts.
Okay.
uh, there are a lot of assembly processes which goes into manufacturing and many other components. So if you see the overall landscape, yes, we are heavily dependent on import, and primarily imported from China, Korea, Japan. Uh, we have a significant imports from Taiwan, Malaysia, Singapore,
Okay.
uh, and also Italy. We have imports Germany. So the imports are not just the components.
Hmm.
We also import white label goods
Okay.
uh, to to market in India. Primarily because we may not be owning certain technologies, and we have a strong market in India. That's why we have both kind of sourcing, both sourcing as a component and sourcing as well as of a finished good. So
Okay.
that's how the supply chain is. Sourcing is designed in BPL Medical Technologies.
Okay. Okay. So when you were saying about the expected growth and how the industry will evolve in the coming years, so the import percentage is expected to reduce in the future if it goes as planned, right?
Yeah, import percentage definitely with the Atmanirbhar Bharat and all these initiatives of government of India, PLI schemes and all many other schemes are available, both as a direct incentive as well as in the form of direct incentive. There is a significant potential as well as I would say opportunity for Indian medical device industry to grow in
Hmm.
India. So as I say, when we talk about CAGR of 12.5, 13% of industry as a whole, this company is expected to grow at a CAGR of around 20%. That's how we are aiming. So from currently 500 crores, we are planning to touch 5,000 crores in next 10 years.
Oh, oh, nice. Oh, nice. So
So
let
we definitely because it's a heavily import dependent sourcing. There is a constant initiative from the organization to localize the component sourcing.
okay,
This not only reduces the cost but also de-risks us from a lot of you know, mm, geopolitical factors that may
right.
play in a big way in the global supply chain sourcing. So having said that, we continuously and sincerely scout for local sources and try as much as possible to source from India, uh, because when it comes to plastics, even if the Indian plastics are costly, we still prefer it and we try to build in strategies so that our overall cost reduces.
Right.
There are other alternate sources also available in Chinese and Taiwanese market, but we don't prefer that.
Okay.
So as much as possible, we try to do whatever is possible in India, try to invest in it,
Hmm.
and then roll back and find out the cost mitigation and cost reduction strategies.
Right. But let's go back to the component sourcing part. So, like, what happens day to day, like how the strategy works overall for the industry, not specific to your organization, but generally what happens, how the sourcing is being done, how the landscape looks like for components
Okay.
specific.
So, see, sourcing as a function plays very important role uh, at the time of development of the product.
Hmm.
When we do the new product development,
Okay.
uh, sourcing plays a very critical role because that is a time when you select a component that is validated, verified, established, and gets locked in the design. Okay,
Okay.
so the sourcing starts from there. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, what do we? Which component do we select? Why do we select a certain component? Uh, why do we select a particular make? Or particular design component is dependent primarily on various factors which contributes to the performance of the device
Okay.
as well as the ease with which we can manage the complete product life cycle. Yeah.
Okay.
So when I say this, it's like a component which which has a longer life, end of life, has a longer end of life.
Hmm.
A component which has greater design tolerances, which can easily maneuver the design inconsistencies that may come in, or
Okay.
I would say design which gives more design flexibility. I would say so that our engineers are able to not just stick to one component because of severe dependence on it, but also uh, a component which gives us flexibility to select range of components which may be interfacing and interacting with it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
one is life cycle of the component. Second is design flexibility.
Okay.
Uh, Third is, I would say, it comes from the lead time also, which is very important in the medical device industry, because generally the lead time of the components are on a very higher side. It is more than, sometimes it is as long as 52 weeks. So
Okay.
in order to have a very responsive supply chain, we will definitely, like not to, select a component which has supply risks.
Okay.
Also, the components are also, sourced from the a very reputed standard manufacturers, who has very, seamless, I would say, and also customer friendly distribution network.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So all these factors plays an important role in the selection of component at the time of new product development. Sourcing, it's not just only component selection; it's also about supplier selection when it comes to the custom-made parts. So we also try to figure out the suppliers who are, more very established long-term players, have a very strong capability, not just to deliver part one time, but also perfect part every time. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So that's also, and along with this, pricing definitely plays an important role, because pricing is one of the most critical levers of success in the overall supply chain.
Hmm.
So these are some of the parameters that we look into when selecting a component. Um, as I told you, the end of life of the component declared by the manufacturer is very important for us, because if you see the Indian medical device industry,
Huh.
uh, we generally have a product which has a life cycle of not less than 7 years. And being an Indian, market, we continue to use the product for 10 years. So
Oh, okay.
servicing the product for the complete life cycle as well as extended life cycle is very important for a manufacturer, because these are all life saving machines and should not be down at any point of time.
Right.
And you can do the aftermarket only if the components are available. Have a higher end of life or life cycle, I would say. So
Okay.
that's how these are certain peculiarities you would find in a medical device space.
Okay.
Um, Also, a few there are certain other factors also which plays an important role. For example, the components are highly regulated. The design is highly regulated in medical devices.
Yeah.
It is primarily managed by CDSU. It's a apex body of India that regulates the medical device market. And a device is also regulated by certain global, accreditation bodies,
Okay.
like TUV SOD. There are UCAS. You have many other, regulatory bodies. So whenever you fix a design and after that you try to change the components
Right.
which may be critical for design, you will have to undergo a lot of approval processes. Yeah.
Right.
So,
Right.
it is very peculiar with medical device industry, which may not be available in any other, consumer good industry, wherein you have a flexibility to change the component during the life cycle of the product. So
Right.
that makes this device more, uh, very peculiar, I would say. And sourcing becomes a very important function in these kind of industries.
Right. Right. So like what you have just explained, which is more from the ecosystem point of view. So if we have to, like in very brief terms, understand, okay, what happens day in, day out in sourcing, just taking an example, like how the team interacts with the suppliers or whatever component they have to purchase, how much time it takes, what kind of licenses or approvals they have to do. If you can just briefly explain that.
Yeah, yeah. So see this. So during the mass production stage, at the stage of mass production, uh, sourcing roles become sometimes very critical,
Mm.
uh, especially in the cases wherein the components. are becoming end of life, has been declared end of life, but required for manufacturing.
Hmm.
uh, for example, if I take an example that I use a mini computer inside my apparatus, and the
Hmm.
mini computer becomes declared end of life by the manufacturer. We still need to do the manufacturing, right? We have to make sure that there is no supply shocks. So in
Right.
this scenario, what happens is so sourcing team reaches out to both engineering team, which is a part of our internal organization, and also the supplier to propose an alternate or a next version of the PC,
Hmm.
which can be part of our design. So it all starts with sharing the data sheet, getting the data sheet from the supplier, sharing with
Hmm.
the engineering team, who studies and gives certain level of confidence that okay, this can be through. So let's say I have proposed four types of mini computers, and out of that the engineering has selected two types. So
Right.
there, after that, the sourcing team arranges the samples, uh, as to the extent required by R&D team. You
Okay.
made maybe three numbers or five numbers, and it is given to R&D team, who does the evaluation.
Okay.
And this evaluation cycle is a little long,
Okay.
especially in the medical device industry, primarily because it has multiple checkpoints to ensure that there is no loopholes when a machine actually reaches to the customer place.
Okay.
So this, validation time, development of alternate is very important and becomes one of the bottlenecks in the seamlessness of the supply chain in
Okay.
these kind of events. So this sourcing team acts as a bridge between supplier and the internal customers
Okay.
to for qualifying the parts, uh, and proposing the alternates which can become a part of further design, and thereafter used can be used in the manufacturing of the goods. So this is quite often in medical industry, primarily because the technology life cycle in medical device is a little on the larger side, primarily because I told you that any design has to be verified, validated, clinically evaluated, approved by many bodies before
Okay.
it goes to the market. So
Okay.
this, because this cycle is little larger, the technology stays longer in these in these kind of
Hmm.
industries. Okay,
Okay.
unlike mobile phones, which changes every 3 years, 2 years,
Right.
the technology stays at least 6 to 7 years in medical devices. So it has good thing as well as bad thing. If the technology stays long, of course you have your longer period to recover your R&D expenses, and you have a longer period to make profit. But it also has certain sequences. It comes with its own disadvantages, like the machine has to be supplied in the market for the next 6 8 years, and
Right.
all the component that goes into manufacturing may not have the life of 6 to 7 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So certain components you're bound to choose which has a lesser life cycle than the declared life cycle of the end product, and this becomes a challenge, and this becomes one of the reasons why we come across these kind of instances wherein the product is still in manufacturing, but the component has gone end of life. So these instances do come. It comes quite often. It has its own process to qualify,
Hmm.
and it cannot be squeezed out. And yeah, these keeps sourcing team on the toes, and keep moving.
Okay. Okay. How the structure works in terms of like whether the majority of the sourcing is contractual or it's a mix of contracts and as per the requirement. Sometimes we do ad hoc purchases also. So how does that work in this industry?
Yeah. So see this. It is basically it's a contractual in these industries.
Okay.
So when the design transfer happens of a given product, when the designing is done, and when the design transfer happens from R&D team to the production team, the bill of material carries the internal part codes, carries the manufacturer part codes as well as supplier name.
Okay.
So that is a reference point for any procurement team, and there is a very little room to go away from it.
Okay.
So the flexibility in the supply chain is very limited when it comes to medical devices, because why this is done, because you establish a make, you establish a manufacturing part number,
Right.
and at the same time, you also establish a supplier, primarily because you do not want to play around in in both, either on the design side as well as quality side. That's why we fix the source constant. If
Okay.
there's any change in the source, primarily because of stockouts or change in the manufacturing plant of the principal, for example, manufacturers does some manufacturing in China, but now he wants to shift the plant to the to Philippines or Vietnam,
Right.
which will give a break of around 8 to 10 months. And after the component comes from the new plant, it also goes for qualification and validation. So this 8 to 10 months, definitely we cannot survive, we cannot stock in the
Okay.
components. So in that cases, whenever you change the source, or I would say supplier of a component, it has to be again go for validation, where which there is a process called sample evaluation,
Okay.
uh, and approval of samples. Once that is done, the component goes into the design. So it is primarily on the contractual side, I would say,
Contract. Okay. Sourcing, like
uh,
because of the nature of the sourcing we do.
nature of the
Right.
goods.
Okay. 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 So, so like, let's, even though you are sharing your inputs considering the overall supply chain, it's a controlled industry because of the nature, right? Licenses, multiple bodies involved. For example, if we have to understand from the challenges point of view, apart from these challenges that the lead times are longer, multiple approvals are required, then we are heavily dependent on imports. Are there any other challenges which are very unique to this industry, which other industries generally don't have to face? Like very inside uh, challenges which are only known to people in the medical industry who are managing the supply chain, if there are any.
Yeah. So of course there are few of them I would like to share here. See, this medical devices have a very high mix and low volume, supply chain. When I
Okay.
say high mix and low volume is, you have a lot of varieties of products, but majority of them don't have large volumes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I understood.
So
Okay.
this
Okay.
is a peculiar thing about this industry, and that makes it very challenging, primarily because you have a large mix of products. Uh, you and also if you see from the demand side, uh, the primary driver of demand in India market is government procurement.
Okay.
Okay, so what happens is this the government procurement is are all tender based, and it is basically a highly uncertain environment wherein we don't know when the order will come. Right?
Okay.
So whenever, and because it is the major source of uh, investment in medical device industry. Whenever these kind of orders comes in, this will give a huge swing to the supply demand cycle of the of the organization. So example, if I sell a component of product of, let's say, 200 numbers per month, and suddenly I reduce increase, I get an order of 1200 numbers which has to be supplied within 30 days time.
Okay.
Yeah. So because of high mix and low volume, we never forecast these kind of volumes. Yeah.
Oh. Oh.
And whenever these kind of spikes comes in, uh, we have a very difficult time to ensure that uh, quality components are sourced within a short time and delivered as per the mandates by the government bodies. So this is one of the challenges. Second is, because of high mix and low volume, the sourcing is not very cost effective.
Hmm.
Uh,
Okay.
the mix is very high. If you talk to any, any vendor, they would not show much interest to medical device industry, primarily because they say that first you will buy only 100 numbers per annum, but I have a capacity to manufacture 1 lakhs
Mm,
per annum. I will focus more on the automobile industry, which has high volume, correct?
right.
So this our sourcing proposal becomes very uh, less lucrative, I would say, or less attractive for any source, any vendors. So that is also one of the challenges that we face. Also, when the volume is low, getting cost efficiencies and volume economies of scale, both on the capacity side, utilization, manufacturing capacity utilization, as well as component sourcing, also becomes very difficult, which is also contrary to the competitive landscape in which we are operating, because majority of the in India, if you see by numbers, around 90% of the medical devices are imported from from China, I would say.
Okay.
Only 10% are done in India, and Chinese supply chain is completely different. They have in-house capabilities. They have a complete ecosystem of all the category of component that goes into manufacturing of the medical device. And these people are present in India market. They use their own strength and leverages to beat the Indian players. So when you have these challenges of high mix, low volume, not very cost efficient, supply chain, it becomes very difficult for us to compete in the India market. So
Mm,
these are some of the challenges, very peculiar with medical device industry,
okay.
um,
Okay.
that plays a key role in building a competitive strategies.
So for example, like what you mentioned, the 90% is import, for example, from particular country, and only 10% is what we are doing here. So are there any duties on the imports?
Yeah,
Or
there are duties on imports. There are ways and means of government to limit this, but
mm.
the Chinese players also have their own ways to uh, break this barrier. So it's quite difficult. It's very difficult right now,
Right.
and it can happen only if we have certain technologies which can tell us the traceability of the components and sub-assemblies and assemblies, which cannot be tampered during until the components are procured, I would say, or the finished goods are procured. Those technologies, if they're brought in, for example, blockchain and all,
Mm.
I think it may help us, to build a to use this, trade barriers put in by government of India
Okay.
to in the favor of Indian medical device manufacturing companies.
Okay. 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 Great. So Tanmay, you were mentioning about the tenders and the government. Can we elaborate it more? Like it's a part of the sourcing and the sourcing process. So maybe it will help the viewers to understand more about it, how it works. So like the tenders and what happens there on regular basis.
Yeah, yeah. So see this, as I told you, overall in the overall medical device sector, majority of the investment is from government. That applies to the company as well. So if you talk about this company, our organization, we have a significant portion of the revenue coming from the government, tenders. What the problem is, with this kind of I would say distribution in terms of revenue is, whatever you are the revenue is coming from government tenders. That part of revenue is never planned, right? Because those are
Okay.
one of those incidents which are highly uncertain and unpredictable.
Okay.
So the unpredictability is quite significant, because there are instances where tenders were floated this year, the results came next year, and the supply lead time is very short.
Okay.
So lead time of supply maybe 60 days, and then thereafter the penalty starts. But in general, in the medical device industry, the lead time cannot be less than at least 3.5 to 4 months, because right from component sourcing, procurement and manufacturing, testing, evaluation, the complete, I would say the the time is at least not less than 4 months. So this it just it without any visibility, we are challenged to deliver the goods in a very record time. So this poses a lot of pressure, I would say, or stress on the supply chain function.
Okay.
Apart from this, it is very common that the government tenders also requires a very specific configurations which are not, most selling.
Okay.
So this is also one of the common challenges in medical device industry, wherein you have a lot of configurations. Yeah. So if you have 10 options in a given patient monitoring device, minimum five parameters, five options, and then goes to up to 10 options. It can be five C2 types of combination, which may be very huge.
Mm.
But it can be five C2, five C3, five C4, five C5 combinations, correct? Yeah. So this is a the combination point that I was talking about is, this
Yes.
is very common in this industry. It's like, go to any shop, any restaurant, and you have 100 types of options available, and you will choose any one of those or two of those, and you will demand that you give me in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, that is
Okay.
the kind of, these kind of orders bring in challenges exist. So uh, also when it comes to government this orders and all, the pricing has to be very competitive. It is
Hmm.
a wafer thin market we operate in, and we try to build in lot of efficiencies. You try to, expect a lot of efficiency within supply chain, which is contrary to the express delivery that is expected from the
Right.
tender. So that is also one of the challenge. And also, once the products are delivered, supplied,
Right.
you have a very long outstanding days, which again poses a huge challenge on the industry.
Hmm.
The C2C cash to cash cycle for these kind of orders are very high, because uh, you if you want to maintain a short lead time, you have to hold a long inventory, a larger inventory.
Right.
Uh, and then you have a long out, very large days of outstanding. So this the cash to cash cycle is very long, and which is again, contrary to the type of price and the type of delivery that the government expects. So these are certain challenges which are present for these type of orders. Apart from this, quality, consistency of quality, as well as government also expects a very longer delivery, life of the products. They want that these products should operate 8 years, 9 years,
Hmm.
and it also comes with penalty terms. If you don't maintain 99% uptime, you are, penalized. So maintaining the life cycle of the, supporting the product throughout its life cycle, which is longer than usual, through after sales, ecosystem of service operations,
Yeah.
also make these kind of, demands very, not very, healthy, I would say.
Hmm.
uh, as I told you, these are very peculiar, a rare combination of machines. uh, Maintaining these, parts uh, as a backup for service operations also poses a lot of challenge, both in terms of uh, both in terms of inventory obsolescence,
Hmm.
as well as, mm, you know bad performance of the product, owing to the, shelf life of the product. So these are
Right.
certain challenges which comes along with the
So,
government tenders.
so I was about to ask this question, which you just mentioned, like about inventory obsolescence, and earlier you explained the component mix and volume problem. So inventory must be a very big problem for you in your industry, right? Like
Yeah,
managing.
yeah.
So is slow moving a big problem? slow moving inventory.
Yeah, of course. This, if you go by electronics manufacturing, electronics device manufacturing industry, if you go by these sectors, you will definitely you see that these inventory holding, aging of inventory as well as huge inventory, shorter inventory turns is a common problem across these kind of industry. And when you talk about medical device electronics industry, this becomes worse. Yeah, so
Hmm.
the
Okay.
norm is, the norm inventory turn will not be more than 2.5 3 times in these kind of industries. So basically you are trying to hold around 4 to 6 months of inventory, which is very high and makes business very strained in terms of profitability and you know
Okay.
margins. So
Okay.
this is a common challenge, uh, because these huge inventory rises primarily because I'll tell you a few key reasons. Is one is demand variability, which is quite high. We do not know which combination is going to sell, but when it comes with very short lead time. So in the anticipation, we will hold certain inventories. Second is the MOQ is also very important, plays a very important role in this industry privately, because you'll buy an MOQ, but you'll consume in numbers.
Okay.
And MOQ may range from 1,000 to 2,000, 3,000 numbers. For passives and actives, maybe 200 to 300 numbers. So, but you will be using in annually 100 numbers, 200 numbers, or 300 numbers. So high mix, low volume also becomes a problem when we talk about MOQ. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
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 Third is, because the product life cycle is large,
Yes.
you have a huge install base in your market, which has to be supported and still has a valid, product life cycle, for
Hmm.
which you will be mandated to maintain a very strong inventory of service,
Right.
even if it is not, selling or not consuming, primarily because certain components may be very vital for
Right.
performance of the machine. So these are certain key factors that contributes to the huge inventory
Hmm.
of these industries, and also, as I told you, high mix and low volume, wide variety of products, and because India as a market, when we talk about medical devices, it is certain large hospitals who are your main key customers,
Hmm.
and when and also the large projects which kicks in and creates a huge demand for these kind of devices. So whenever you have these requirements coming in, it will be basically a bundled requirement, or they are expecting a player who are a solution provider, not just a product provider. Okay, so
Oh.
you are bound to maintain a very large portfolio or large basket of your finished goods. So
Okay.
uh, so you will have inventory sitting both in finished good form, because you want to cater a larger market. You have inventory sitting in finished good form because when the order comes in, you have a shorter delivery lead time. Uh, in the raw material, you will have a huge inventory because you have a MOQ issues,
Hmm.
large MOQs are there. Uh, and also you need to maintain the parts for service support.
Right.
Uh, Also, there are cases wherein the components are going end of life, but those kind of the but you still need to be maintained for service requirements, because the machines with those old versions are still sitting in the field and requires support whenever it goes down. So these are some of the areas, the factors which contribute to the large
Hmm.
inventory.
So which are your key raw materials or goods which are primarily managed? Like
So
uh,
primarily, it was, if you go by any product, typically around 30-35% will be PCBAs,
okay.
populated circuit board assemblies.
Okay.
Uh, you have then standalone electronic components like SMPS,
Okay.
cable harnesses,
Okay.
which contributes another 20%. So basically, 50% is contributed by just two categories of
Hmm.
component. Then you
Okay.
have 20% coming in from plastics molded parts, and
Okay.
around 10 to 15% coming from the metal parts, and balance is others. But it also depends on type of products.
Right.
When you talk about monitoring devices or handheld devices, this is the combination. But when you talk about larger devices which goes in OT like surgical C-arms and X-ray machines, a significant contribution comes from metal parts because basically it's a mechanical containing X-ray generating
Hmm.
sub assemblies, and finally used for generating X-ray images. So the mix is little different in those cases.
Okay.
The mechanical contribution may be on a higher side for these X-rays, and but I would. It is very clear that around 40 to 50% of the parts will be electronics.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So, last part, I think the major understanding about the industry and the supply chain, primarily from sourcing angle, is covered. Now, I'm sure that when you must be hiring someone in your team, or if anyone reaches out to you that I am very much interested in this industry in supply chain, primarily in medical devices industry. So what kind of advice you generally give, like which you can share today also? Okay, these are the things which this person should be ready for, like in terms of skills and growth. So what do you say to your juniors or anyone who reaches out to you that I want to become a part of supply chain in this industry? So what should I do?
Yeah, so I would see for entering these medical devices supply chain, I would require at least people knowing the various steps involved in operating the supply chain. Right from sourcing, how the products are developed,
Mm.
how the inventory is planned, how procurement happens, how do we maintain the how do we manage the engineering changes in the
Okay.
during the life cycle of the product, and how the product dies, the complete life cycle. At least they should be able to understand. And most important is the regulatory part of the supply chain, which becomes very important when it
Okay.
comes to medical devices, like
Okay.
what are the best practices when you go for sourcing, what kind of vendors can you onboard, what are the risks when we go with a very general kind of vendor who is who has capability, but may pose certain risks as
Hmm.
per ISO 13485 standards or 9001 standards. So these
Okay.
QMS standards also clearly has to be understood by the person.
Okay.
He should also have a fair idea about regulatory regimes in India. How
Hmm.
does what are the mandates of CDSCO? What are the guidelines?
Okay.
What are the licensing? What licenses are required? What kind of components are notified, not notified?
Okay.
Which components are regulated, not regulated, uh, and also uh, within this component sourcing, he should be conversant with almost all the major, at least principals who manufacture chips,
Okay.
the nuances associated with those kind of principles, and what is the distribution network of those principal, how the distribution happens. If it
Okay.
is not available with supplier X, which vendors can I reach out, still ensuring the quality is good, there is no infringement on quality. And if there is it's not available anywhere, what are the other sources which can be used to manage those blackouts in the
Okay.
supply chain, like spot buying options available globally. And when we are doing the spot buying, how do we ensure that components are still having the traceability is intact and quality is ensured. So these are certain things which I would expect a sourcing guy to understand. And also he should be conversant with the production process of the medical devices, because if he understands production process and requirements of procurement, then only he will be able to handle sourcing in the most effective way,
Hmm.
which will ensure the supply chain surplus throughout the value chain.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
these are certain points I would expect any person to.
Okay.
Uh, and of course, inventory, how the supply chain can contribute to the P&L of the organization from the management side of it. Why a leader supply chain is required? Which decisions can impact adversely or properly to the to the business uh, objectives. A person should also know about the importance of inventory, how it impacts the business objectives, uh, what comes good with inventory, what comes bad with inventory.
Right.
Those has to be clearly understood by the person, and he should be he should have a systems thought, not just a person working just for its own function, because it is basically a cross-functional environment wherein you interact with many people to seek approvals, understand, and finally fix the help the design team to fix the
Hmm.
this product. So
Right.
uh, I would suggest that a person should in this supply chain he should start career with sourcing, um,
Okay.
have a very strong sourcing experience, and then gradually progress towards covering the complete value chain of the
Hmm.
supply chain.
So is it right to consider that having an engineering background will surely help
Yeah,
in
it is very much mandated. If you talk about my own team, I have a team of around 70 people, and
Hmm.
uh, out of 17, 16 will be engineers, and
Hmm.
out of 16, 12 will be electronics engineer, two three
Hmm.
mechanical, and balance others. So it is very important to have an electronics background, uh, because that helps you to make a lot of decisions on your own, which will be in line with the design and R&D requirements, which will also help to cut down the overall product delivery uh, timelines. So you will be more independent, you will be more confident, and you will deliver right things in first shot.
Right.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thanks a lot, Tanmay, and thank you very much. I really enjoyed, and I hope whoever will watch the episode, he or she will surely learn from it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care.